course, there's zikr, but are there some other qualities that were discovered in your studies?
What you mean by qualities again?
Just the main characteristics of the Quran. Like zikr, you say is paramount, but is there anything else? Any other qualities that just came out at you?
So let me, before uh, looking at, as you call it, other qualities, let me continue a little bit with that zikr thing, because it is not as basic as it seems. Because you see, when we say, okay, Quran is a reminder, is an advice, some people may think that just that, I mean, this is it. Is there nothing else there? And I want to say that actually this is something very, very deep and important and significant, because the Quran is zikr. Zikr of what? Okay, zikr of anything that helps you with tazkiyah, with spiritual purification. Okay, that's fine, that's okay. But aligned with that, the Quran is zikr of God, zikr of the source. And God says in the Quran that Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 152, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ. You do zikr of me, I do zikr of you. Which in a very common sense way, I said, you think about me, I will think about you. Of course, God never thinks, but he doesn't need to think, but that's it. What I'm trying to say, Irtaqa, is that look at the style of the Quran. I do believe that many of the other holy books also have the style of zikr, but I think the style of zikr that the Quran has is quite unique, because God directly talks with you in the Quran. You see God in the Quran. And that's why that when you read the Quran, other than learning from it, using it, getting advice from it, getting reminder from it, you're also worshiping God. Reading the Quran itself is act of worshiping. Why is that? Because when you read the Quran, you remind yourself of God. And when you do that, God, waskurkum, starts to do zikr of you. Yeah? So this dialogue will take place. The connection will come open. It is as if you are praying. It's a two-way thing. It's not just one way. It's a two-way thing. You start having zikr of God, God will have zikr of you. So then, by reading the Quran, actually you will see God in front of you. If the Quran was a textbook, we would have not had advice in the Quran and in hadith and narrations as well, that read the Quran as much as you can in your prayers. فَقْرَوْا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ. As much as you can, as much as it is easy for you, read the Quran. Okay? If it was textbook, no, go chapter by chapter. Read one page, fully understand it, take notes, now go to the next page. Don't rush through it. In fact, that's a very, very wise advice for an author of a textbook. Don't rush through it. As for the Quran, no, just read it. Just keep reading it. Because it is zikr. And because it is worship. So, when I say zikr, and you ask me what else before answering you, I want to make it clear that this zikr itself is a huge thing. It's a huge thing. It's not just getting advice. Okay, I got my advice, so I need to be a good person. That's the advice I get today. I need to be good to my parents. That's the advice. No, that's there. But the most significant advice that you are giving, most significant zikr that you are giving is zikrullah. Seeing God in front of you when you read the Quran, and having that dialogue and communication with the Quran. There are people who read the Quran, and when they are reading the Quran, they're seeing themselves in front of the Almighty. and they just have a dialogue. It's like a dialogue. Not that God will talk to them, but as if God is talking to them. So that's the thing. But then, of course, I think very much aligned with that zikr. The Quran is a brilliant book to provide a meaning for your life. Provide a meaning, you know. Having a meaning for life is something that is very significant, very important, you know. What is the meaning of life? Many people are struggling with this. And because they don't have very clear answer for that in their heart. Because the answer can be in the brain, but you're still not fully comprehending it. You're still not fully appreciating it. If they have answer in their heart, then they feel that comfort. I think the Quran does provide that comfort because it provides a meaning. The Quran says, "Ala bi zikrillahi tatma'innul qulub." With zikr of Allah, the zikr of God, your heart will be confident. Well, as we said, Quran itself is zikr. So even reading the Quran, of course, understanding its meaning as well, will help with that confidence.
If I may interject,
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to get this question across. I think even last time, you were translating the same verse, and I think we were still dabbling a little on the exact translation of this verse. What is the exact translation of this verse? With the remembrance of Allah, hearts, because usually it's been translated as hearts find peace. Do you think that's the most accurate translation?
Well, no, not that you put it in that way. Itminan means confidence. Okay, Itminan means confidence. So if you want to translate it, well, I think the best word that we can use is confidence. So with zikrullah, with the reminder of God, your heart will find confidence. Okay, if it has been translated as peace, that's because that confidence, obviously, the most implication of that confidence, the most output of that confidence is that peace, and that is what is really what bothers people when they do not have that peace. Okay, some people might say that confidence about why do I need confidence? So you remind them, well, that confidence brings you that peace. Okay, so I would say confidence, confidence about the fact that you're not alone. Okay, there's something here that keeps you. That doesn't mean that you will not be involved in any incidents. That doesn't mean that you will never have anything to be sad about. That doesn't mean that you'll never lose anything or any loved ones. Life is life, and God says that there are challenges in life, of course. And the Lord says that human being has been created with sorrow, with there is experience of sorrow and pain in life, of course. But still, I think there's a huge difference between thinking that, okay, everything was random, and life is random, everything is random. I came to this life randomly, and everything happens to me randomly, and then I will die, and this is it basically. I think there's a huge difference between this and to think that, okay, yes, of course, randomness is a major contributor to our life, but that itself is on the basis of some wisdom. That itself is on the basis of a system. And there's a system here. There is a source here. There is something here. Okay, you call it God, call it Allah, call it Ahura Mazda in Zoroastrianism, or even like Buddhists say that, okay, it's not a personal being, but we want to reach nirvana, which still means that there is something there. There is some system there. Okay, I think that makes lots of difference. So that is the confidence about the fact that Yeah, I mean, I'm connected to something here. I'm not just just floating in the air, not knowing where I'm coming from and where I'm going.
Okay. So
Okay.
if we talked about different traditions and how different traditions, I think, most of all emphasize a connection to God. But let's talk about, Allah's names in Islam that are often encouraged by scholars to memorize and to repeat. But I was just thinking the other day that I think almost all of the names are attributed to a certain quality, like a certain, if you will, emotional quality. Like, I don't think in Islam, I might be wrong, but I don't think there's a lot of explanation of God's, so to speak, like physical form, you
Mhm,
know?
mhm, mhm.
Uh, it's mostly just emotional and something that's relatable to humans. Um, Do you have any comment on that? I mean, I don't have a specific question on that, but it's just something I figured.
Yeah, okay. So this I think relates to next category of topics that we are going to talk, not next episode, but next category of topics when we are going to talk about religious pluralism and all that. But because you asked me, let me just very quickly say a few things. You have a good question. Okay, that's a good question. Let me put it this way. So, for instance, in the Quran, we have that God is Alim, He knows everything, or that God is Samir, He hears everything, or He is Awwal wal Akhir, He is before and after, or first and at the end. Uh, well, if we can say that there might be a time when there was no other creature, there was no creature, and there was just God and God alone, then what would be the meaning of Alim and Sami and Awwal and Akhir? Because there's nothing there to know, yeah? There's nothing there to hear, and there's nothing there to be before it or after it, yeah? What I'm trying to say is that um, God is in God. What we call as God is um, infinite. Yeah, God is not limited to anything. Any phenomenon that is infinite and is not limited to anything, uh, understanding it, imagining it, will be impossible for us. Okay, um, it's very easy to test that. Okay, like if I tell you, can you imagine? Can you imagine that there's a um, there's a piece of wood that never ends, just goes on and on and on. It's difficult to imagine that because we human beings and every creature, uh, we are bound by limitations, and we can only understand things that have limitation. Okay. Um, so basically, what I'm trying to say is that let us for now, put a cover on the word God or Allah or whatever name you want to call it. Let us call it that ultimate truth. Okay, that ultimate truth is not understandable by us because it is infinite. It is not limited to anything. If we argue that we can understand it, then it cannot be that ultimate truth. It's something different. Okay? But if we think about it that way, then there's no way that we can connect ourselves with Him, with that ultimate truth, because we don't have any understanding of it. How can you do that? I tell you, you need to relate to something, and you say, "What is that thing?" I say, "Sorry, I cannot describe it." How can I relate myself to it? What are you talking about? Okay. So what is then happening is that human being tries to understand that ultimate being with the limitations that they have, and to use the words, human being words, in order to describe it. And of course, then human being words will limit it. We limit that. But that's okay, because you know that you are just describing it. This is not all of it. Okay? So here comes the names of the Almighty. Sami, Alim, Awal, Akhir. All of these is the result of human being, okay, connected to that ultimate truth, and then understanding it with their human values, with their human limitations. Okay, that doesn't mean that these names are not important. They are very important. They are very important because yes, they are coming from limited view of a human being, but they are coming from the limited view of a human being who has experience connecting with the Almighty. In this particular case, the Prophet. Okay. So then behind all these names, yeah, there will be a concept, there will be a meaning. Alim, Sami, there will be a concept, there will be a meaning. Okay, when we say God is Sami, that doesn't mean that the waves of sound goes to his ear. That's not the meaning of it. Okay, it is something much deeper than that. So I think I'll stop there because it will take us to somewhere totally different from the topic of this episode.
Right. Okay, so next question. There are, you might have watched such videos, but there are so many scholars who say that the Quran could not have been revealed in any other language other than Arabic, because of certain characteristics of the Arabic language. Now, you often emphasized the Quran's unique literary structure and its linguistic style. Um, First of all, are you in agreement with such scholars that believe that Arabic was the language that the Quran could only have been revealed in? And also, if yes, then can you elaborate on what makes its Arabic so distinct and why understanding this linguistic dimension is crucial to grasping its true nature?
Okay. So I do believe that the Quran could not be revealed in any other language than Arabic, but for a different reason. And my reason is a very simple reason. The reason is in the Quran itself, because the audience of the Quran were Arabs. So, so how could Quran be revealed in, I don't know, Roman or Chinese when the audience were Arabs? So of course it had to be revealed in Arabic. What that means is that if for whatever reason that the Prophet was from China, it would have been revealed in Chinese. As simple as that. The Quran itself says that we have sent every prophet with the language of their own people. So of course it needed to be in their own language. I don't believe that it had to be in Arabic. Because you think about it the other way around, it would be quite awkward if you think that there are concepts in the Quran that can only be expressed in Arabic, so therefore the Prophet needs to be from Arabs because the language of the Quran needs to be Arabic. That's a very awkward way of thinking about it. That's a reverse logic. No, the logic is the other way around. The Prophet was Arab, he was for Arabs, so therefore the Quran needs to be in Arabic, right? Having said that, yes, the Arabic of the Quran is magnificent because it's beautiful. And the Quran itself has challenged its audience, in particular direct audience, that, if you can make something like this, let's see if you can do something like this. There are lots of stories about how just the beauty of the language of the Quran got people to accept Prophet Muhammad. People at the time of the prophets, not all of them were like many people today who are after reasoning and discussing and debating. It wasn't always like that. In fact, most of the time it's just about being impressed by something or not being impressed by something. We have read, for instance, in the narrations and the history that the Quraysh asked people, the pilgrims among Kaaba, non-Muslims of course, to put some sort of cloth in their ears, because the Prophet used to come there and recite the Quran, and they would say these are some magic words. If you listen to them, it will deceive you. And what was magical about it was the beauty of it, how beautiful it was. There was this poem at the time of that became Muslim, and he never said any poems after that. And later on, at the time of the second Khalifa, he asked him that, why don't you say any poems anymore? And he said, once I heard Baqarah, the surah, the chapter of Baqarah, and the chapter of Al Imran, I decided I'm not going to say any more poems. Because the beauty that these chapters had, I'm just immersed in that beauty. I cannot even start saying any poem. That doesn't mean that the Quran is a poem, but it has beauty in the language that can be found in poems as well. So yes, I think I don't agree that Arabic was the only language that the Quran needed to be revealed because of the concepts that it's trying to talk about. No, I think it needed to be revealed in Arabic because the Prophet was Arab and the audience were Arab. Having said that, the Arabic of the Quran is beautiful. قاف ها يا عين صاد ذكر رحمة ربك عبده زكريا إذ نادى ربه نداء خفيا قال رب إني وهن العظم مني واشتعل الرأس شيبا ولم أكن بدعائك رب شقيا وإني خفت الموالي من ورائي. You don't even need to understand the meaning of it, although it's important to understand the meaning, or you don't even need to understand the meaning of it. You can see the beauty of the verses.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Now, moving on, many perceive the Quran as primarily a book of laws or a historical narrative, like we talked about, while it contains elements of both, which I'm yet to know if you agree with that. But you've suggested that its primary function might be something else entirely. And so when you explain that you believe that the Quran's central purpose or message is zikr, I would just want you to elaborate a little on that idea, because there are many scholars these days that point to the idea of zikr and they connect it to science. They say that because our brains are wired for understanding reminders better, that's just the way how our brains function. That is the reason why, um, you know, the Quran is called the reminder and things are repeated in the Quran because of that purpose.
Um, well, if you're saying that things are repeated in the Quran because of the purpose of zikr, and that the scientists say, or scholars say that the scientists say that our brains wired in a way that by these repetitions, for instance, they can get that zikr, I agree with that, and that's what I said. The Quran introduces itself as zikr. And as I said, when you look at the way that the Quran is, you will find that the approach that the Quran is also, that approach is approach of zikr, approach of being reminded and advice. And I think as I said, every other thing in the Quran is on the basis of that approach, and that approach and all those every other thing are recruited for the objective of the Quran, which is purification, tazkiyah. In fact, let me just read one of the notes that I have put here. You see, one of the good things that we should try to do when we try to study the Quran, not just reading it, but studying the Quran, is to try to get the concepts and try to find a logical way to put these concepts in place, find their connections, rather than just putting them in one row and say Quran talk about this and this and this and this and that. Okay, like for instance, giving you an example. So as we talked about it last time, the verse of the Quran that okay. So for instance, the verse of the Quran, رَبَّنَا وَابْعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَلِيمُ الْحَكِيمُ, verse number 129 in Surah Al-Baqarah. So we talked about it last time. You read one verse like this, you ask, okay, so what is the objective of the Prophet for coming? Okay, based on this verse, the Prophet has a number of objectives. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ, read the verses for you. يُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابِ, so teach you kitab. يُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ, teach you hikmah. وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, and spiritual purification. So the Prophet came for 4 things. But if you consider that the Quran says the main criteria for success is tazkiyah, purification, and then you will understand that no, actually it's not like this, it's like a hierarchy. So the main thing is tazkiyah. For that, يُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. For that, يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ. Okay, so it is very important that when we read, when we study the Quran, we try to recognize these things and not just look at everything like a linear thing. On that basis, so the Quran, I said, is book of zikr, book of advice. Yeah. I don't know if we talked about it last time or not, but I'm sure we'll talk about it perhaps in the next episode. And we talk about the function of inzar, or warning, in the Quran. Okay? We talked about purification. So the Quran is there to purify us. And then guidance. The Quran itself says hudan linnas. It's guidance, right? So where do we put all these? This is the way that I look at it. I would say the subject of the Quran is guidance. The objective of the Quran is spiritual purification. The style of the Quran is inzar, which is warning, and we will explain that in the next episode. And the tool, or you may say the approach of the Quran for all this is zikr, advice and reminder.
Right. So now let's shift to what it is not aspect, which I believe is equally important for clarity. There's a common misconception, particularly in the West, that the Quran is analogous to the Christian Bible, a single chronologically ordered book written by various authors over centuries. How do you distinguish the Quran from such a comparison, and what are the key differences in its compilation and claimed origin?
So I think it is easy to see the difference between Quran and Bible. One just needs to read between them. The Bible, or in fact, let's be more accurate, the Gospels, that is the core of the Bible, is basically mostly the story of Jesus. And of course, in that story, we also read some advice, the lectures, the talks, the speeches of Jesus as well. But basically, it's just the story of Jesus, and the story that is being given to us by an observer, okay, one of the apostles. The Quran is not a book of story. So you start reading from the beginning. No, it's not a book of story. Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. It's talk about the Quran and itself. So the first thing is that Bible is book of story. Okay. Let me reword that. Not that Bible is book of story. I also believe that even Bible is for zikr, and it is for purification. But when you read the Bible, you read stories. Okay? When you read the Quran, it's not stories. That's one thing. The other thing is that the language, as I talked about it before. So even if you look at the original Aramic language of Bible, I don't think even the Christians would say that it is as beautiful as the Arabic language of the Quran. The Quran intentionally has been made beautiful. This is very important. That's why you see there's rhyme at the end of the verses. Okay, and it is interesting. For instance, let me tell you this: that Surah إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ خَيْرٌ مِّنْ أَلْفِ شَهْرٍ تَنَزَّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَالرُّوحُ فِيهَا بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِم مِّنْ كُلِّ أَمْرٍ سَلَامٌ هِيَ حَتَّى مَطْلَعِ الْفَجْرِ Okay, so all the endings are like with Ra, okay, Qadr, Shahr, and all that. There's a question among the uh, scholars of the Quran that the verse that says Laylatul Qadr khayrun min alf shahr, which means the night of Qadr, the night of value, is better than 1,000 months. Okay, there's a question that you will not compare apples with oranges. You will not compare um, centimeters with inches, right? Or centimeters with meters. White is comparing one night with 1,000 months instead of saying 1,000 nights. Okay? And there are lots of discussions about it, what the reasons are. You might be interested to know that one of the explanations coming from Muslim scholars is that it's because of that rhyming at the end, shahr, because it rhymes nice with Badr. And this is the importance of beauty of the Quran. Okay, so um, I don't think Bible has that beauty even in its original language. The other thing that I think is very much different between Quran and Bible is that I need to make this footnote here that I'm not talking about which one is better than which one. I'm not saying that. I think each one of them has their own qualities. We're just talking about the differences. So another difference is that, as I said, God God exists in the Quran. When you read the Quran, you see God in front of you. More than just thinking that, oh, this reminds me and says there is a God. No, no, no. The language of the Quran, I mean, he's directly talking to you. Okay, so again, I don't think we can argue that Injil is the same. In terms of originality and authenticity, I talked about it before, and let's skip that historical aspect because we don't want to talk about Christianity versus Islam or anything like that. Of course, there are four gospels, and these are according to four apostates of Jesus as being reported, and we do know that. As far as I know, none of them have been directly received from those apostates, but it was attributed to them. But at the same time, I should also say that the Quran refers to Injil and Torah, and the Quran says to followers of Injil, فَلْيَحْكُمْ أَهْلَ الْإِنْجِيلَ بِمَا they need to follow the Injil, they need to follow rulings of Injil and all that. And same for Torah. And the Injil and Torah that was at the time of the Prophet Muhammad was pretty much the same Injil and Torah that we have today. The meaning of that is that when the Quran says, look at these books, you'll find that these things are also in those books. It was talking about the same books that we have today as Injil and Torah. So Quran has given them credit. That may not necessarily mean that they are 100% authentic, but the Quran has given them that credit.
Right, right. And just to clarify, there are stories obviously mentioned in the Quran as well. But do you think that maybe just in terms of numbers, they're less?